Yeah, it's over. I'm not even going to try and spin this in a positive light because that would be coping. This unit at this point is just beyond cooked. Even with the changes that have came out today, which is top tier clip farming by Hoyoverse, despite how good the buffs looked, they didn't really change anything in the grand scheme of things. So let's quickly go over everything with some calculations I'll show later in the video. And due to popular demand, hello there, Flip here, and today we're going to be talking about Mizuki once again. As over the last 3 weeks, she has received some buffs that I haven't seen that many people talk about. So I'm going to be diving into all of her changes as well as addressing the glaring issues that she has in her kit and team building, as I've seen people try to spin this or just not understand why she's in such a bad state. So in this video I plan to clear all of that up as well as dive into her current best team options that I can think of. Channel members, thank you all so much for your support, it really does mean the world to me. And also, hi, Mov Weekend Lawyer are finally here, so if you'd like to save yourself some cash, then I'd like to announce the sponsor of today's video, Lootbar. Lootbar is a very safe and secure service I've been using for a few months now that some of you may be familiar with, as it allows you to buy Primo Gems at a 23% discount. And it doesn't need any of your passwords or personal information, I just need to type in my UID, select my region, and would you look at that, in only 3 minutes I've received my gems. I got the 3,280 Primo Gem pack at only £36.8, which saves me some money from the original price. This site has also been endorsed by other creators such as Juice, Dukaja, and of course yours truly. Lootbar essentially will act as a gateway using a VPN to cut down on the cost of gems by removing certain taxes, whilst going through the official top-up methods for the game, which allows you to enjoy the benefits that you'd get in game like the top-up bonuses. So use my link in the description below to get 8% off any user coupon on your purchase. Thank you Lootbar for sponsoring, and with that, let's get back to the video. So we should all know what Mizuki does by now. She's a very simple character. Elemental skill makes her an on-field turret where she counts normal attack and increases swirl damage, blah blah blah, and then her burst makes her throw down a snack which will either heal or deal AoE Onamo damage depending on your HP. So from her base kit, this wasn't touched that much. They did increase her healing, but it isn't anything that significant. But a very good change they made is the fact that now when Mizuki herself picks up a snack, the healing is going to be doubled, and this is good because it obviously is more healing. And in conjunction with Furina increasing healing bonus, this means that when you pick up a snack, you'll most likely trigger her Ascension 4 and enable team-wide healing, increasing Mizuki's prior poor fanfare generation. Her passive is also tweaked to stack faster, but this has virtually no gameplay impact, so it doesn't matter. The only other buffs were to her constellations, in which her C1 is now no longer purely single target and will apply to more than one enemy, and her C2 has its damage doubled to be on par with Kazuha. Don't get your hopes up though, this damage buff only works while Mizuki's on fields to off-field units. Breaking news, as of recording this video, Mizuki has received some extra changes. They doubled her swirl damage bonus per EM, so her swirls are just stronger now, as well as making her C1 stronger. And wow, she must be so good now, right? After calculating the changes, it ends up being around a 2k DPS increase across the board, nothing too major. And if you want to see those calculations, make sure to stick around till the end. Alas, now with all the changes covered, let's dive into Mizuki's issues and why the more I find out about this character and how her teams function, the more bleak the reality is. The biggest issue James Jameson has right now is just the fact that she has no teammates. For every character she can work with, she just introduces a boatload of issues, which mainly stems from the team archetype she has to be played in. Due to the nature of Mizuki increasing swirl damage, you want to capitalize on teams that swirl the most, which is going to be electrocharge teams, as with enough application you're potentially getting double the swirls you would be able to regularly. Or you can do teams like aggravate, in which in AoE swirls are able to aggravate and do even more additional damage. So right off the bat, those are the two best Mizuki teams currently where she's actually doing something as a unit, but then a lot of problems arise with this if these are the teams she's meant to be played in. Starting with EC teams, Auroron is a really good teammate for her, but then it doesn't really look that bright from there. For Hydro options, you have Kokomi and Furina, in which Kokomi isn't that great as Mizuki already heals, and Kokomi's damage profile isn't that high to justify using her here over Furina. And with Furina, after the changes to her healing, the synergy got better, but it still isn't the greatest thing ever, especially because Furina's Hydro application is on the slower side. And I guess I should go on the tangents now before discussing the rest of Mizuki's teammates, but Mizuki is very poor in single target. With an electrocharge team, you're able to double swirl and get double the damage from one instance of Onamo being applied. And with Mizuki, she applies Onamo 12 times give or take, so you would think that would be 12 EC swirls, but not really. As you can see in the background footage, due to the fact that electrocharge is still taking place and Furina's on the slower side of Hydro application, it is very likely you'll sometimes only swirl Electro before Furina reapplies Hydro, or in rare cases, while Auroron and Fischl are bound by ICD, there are cases where you only swirl Hydro. And because all of Mizuki's damage is her swirls, this does matter quite a lot to her in single target. And I know I'm going to get the comment that, oh, Mizuki is an AoE character, therefore her single target shouldn't matter, but I don't think that's a very good argument in this day and age. If you look at some of the best damage dealers in the game right now, now, they are both good in single target and in AoE. Diluc and Keqing, who are both standard banner damage dealers, are both good in AoE and in single target, so I don't really think we should be excusing this flaw of hers. But going back on topic, this swirl discrepancy that she has happens less when you're able to use a fast applicator like Xingqiu, which as we know isn't something Mizuki can really do. So yeah, all the Hydra options for her aren't really that great as of now, and I don't really see Genjin releasing another Hydra option that's as good as Furina, so I don't know. Now for the third slot in your team, currently the best option is to put in another Electra unit, in which you have no other option but Yai, Miko, or Fischl. There honestly isn't really that much of a difference between the two. Yai does extend rotations, which can be awkward, but they're basically the same performance in single target while Yai handles AoE content better, so you can just make the argument that Yai is the best second Electra for Mizuki overall. And speaking of Fischl, I do want to say that I think I actually underrated her on Mizuki teams. In my first video, I pointed out how you don't get any Fischl C6 procs, but what I didn't consider at the time is the fact that in return Mizuki enables Fischl's A4 to hit a lot more times. When Fischl is used on an EC team with a Hydra or Electra driver, because of how inconsistent ownership is, she very rarely gets any A4 procs. But with Mizuki, every time you trigger an Electra swirl, that is one proc of her A4, which sort of makes up for that. But in the same way I underrated Fischl, there's another glaring issue with Mizuki due to her having to stay on field for 10 seconds. You see, both Electra charge teams and aggravate teams are usually quick swap, where the units are allowed to freely swap off mid-rotation with no dedicated on-fielder. And this is great for a character like Fischl due to the fact that her uptime is 12 seconds and can be recast instantly with her burst. So the way to navigate these teams where you can freely swap out is to dedicate one rotation to having two Fischl windows for a 25-second long rotation, where Fischl gets almost 100% uptime the entire rotation, only losing 1 second of presence. But with Mizuki, her rotations will be closer to 20 seconds long as she can't swap out, where Fischl is losing 8 seconds of uptime, lowering her potential damage output. And this isn't something that other Onamos drivers face like Sucrose, as they don't need to be kept on field for as long. And because of this, when calculating how good both Mizuki and Sucrose teams fared, the results may shock you, but in single target at least, Sucrose seems to just be better than Mizuki. Funnily enough, before the changes today, Sucrose dealt more damage overall, as her rotations end up being longer so she can soar more, but this is no longer the case. Another underrated aspect of Sucrose in this role is the fact that she buffs EM and makes other units on the team deal more Electra charge damage, which is something Mizuki can't do. In AoE, Mizuki should theoretically be more damage, but I doubt that will be the actual practical result, due to the fact that Mizuki doesn't really have grouping. Even if you want to say Sucrose has bad grouping, you'll feel it a lot more, which makes her swirls and Electra charge procs more consistent. And additionally, Sucrose's abilities just have more reach than Mizuki's, so I don't even think she'll be that much better than Sucrose in AoE either, if at all. And for a character that is only able to run these driving teams, for her to not even really be better than a unit who isn't designed for this is kind of embarrassing to say the least. And I was curious, so I went to look further into this team, and with Mizuki C1, she's still losing to Sucrose theoretically. Her C1 is only around a 15% personal damage increase to herself, as it procs around 3 times and is an additive damage increase. Normally a 15% damage increase sounds good, but when Mizuki is only a quarter of the team's damage, it doesn't matter that much. Though again, in AoE this will feel a lot more noticeable. It takes until Mizuki C2 for her to be better than Sucrose on paper, and the funniest thing about this is her buff is snapshotable, and therefore Fischl doesn't get any of it. So if you have a Yai, this is where she would just be better than Fischl as she can't be buffed. What I'm trying to say is that basically Mizuki needs her C2 to be better than Sucrose on Electra charge teams. Do with that information what you will. Also, before going into the second Mizuki team that I think will be good, if at any point during this video you've been entertained or informed, make sure to drop a like, and even consider subscribing, as I talk on various topics regarding Genshin's meta and I'll try to keep you updated. Also, you should really consider turning notifications on, because last week I made a bet that I would double upload, and I successfully completed the double upload, but yet there were people after I posted going back to that community post to say that I didn't double upload when I did, and you don't want to look like an idiot, so make sure to do that. Now back to the video. The other Mizuki team I think is going to be viable for her is an aggravate team. You want to have Nahida here as she increases Mizuki's EM further, and then from there again you want Fischl, and then the only Electro option that can really be played here is Yai. I haven't actually calculated this team yet, so I don't know how well it would actually perform, but the main reason why this team is going to be so good is because they have the Nahida synergy there. If Mizuki or Nahida reach 1000 EM, that gives 250 EM to Mizuki, which on top of being able to aggravate swirl and multi-target makes it so that her swirls hit a fuck ton harder. There are some issues with this though, because aggravate swirls are only able to be performed in AoE, so at least in single target, on-fielding Mizuki won't feel that great, and I'd rather you just on-field Yai at that point, so that you can get a lot more aggravate procs for Fischl. And then of course for multi-target, just on-field Mizuki, you're going to be hitting insane aggravate swirls. The only real problem I have with this team is the fact that if you already have Yai and Fischl, why not just on-field Yai regardless? Aggravate AI teams have been her staple for a while now, and if you just grab Mizuki, you can run better groupers like Lanyon, Sucrose, or Kazuha, while being able to run better defensive options too, and Yai being on field allows her to catch Fischl's particles, so therefore she can just burst more often. So I don't really see this being a better way to play AI teams, and it's just like, what is this unit for? The only other team archetype or option for Mizuki I haven't mentioned there are double Onamo teams, which would just replace your second Electro, and the reason I haven't talked about these teams is I just don't think they'd be that good for most Abyss content. Mizuki's team output in single target already isn't that great, and this would just make that even worse. I've seen people seriously recommending Venti Mizuki, and even though this would rip through AoE content, are we being dead ass? Besides the tailor-made Mizuki Abyss lineup, this team would just crumble against any boss. We're just not using double Onamo gives you better checks against single target while still being good in AoE. So even though the interaction with double Onamo is fun, I just doubt the viability. There's also the fact that you lose the swirl damage buff if Mizuki swaps out, so you wouldn't even really be able to spam Venti or Kazuha's abilities, and would have to rely purely on their off-field bursts. And speaking of the Abyss actually, one thing I find funny is that the first Abyss iteration gave a 200% swirl damage bonus, which is standard, just a buff to make Mizuki stronger. This happens with all banner characters. But now they increased the floor 12 buff to 600% swirl damage bonus. What could possibly justify this? So if Mizuki showcases or looks really well in the Abyss, this is going to be why. Overall, Mizuki just has so many problems and issues without any real redeeming qualities in return. She is going to be very cheap to build and also is very easy to play if that's what you value, but there isn't that many other upsides to her. She potentially isn't even going to be better than the current Sucrose Taser driving teams. There's no real use for her in aggravate teams when on-fielding Yai will give you better results. She isn't that stellar at all in single target, and even in AoE where she might be good, her attack radius isn't that great on top of having no real grouping. When I bring all of these problems up, people tell me I'm doom posting her, but I'm not. To doom post, you have to exaggerate the outcome of something or only focus on the negatives of it. When I'm pointing out how Mizuki is a flawed character and how she's bad because of those flaws, that isn't doom posting, that is just me analyzing the character. If you want to see what actual doom posting looks like, then go in the comment section of any of my community posts or videos about Mizuki. If me just analyzing the character seems like doom posting, then I don't know, maybe the character just isn't good. And yes, I do want to say that most of Mizuki's problems come from the fact that she has no strong synergies besides Auroron. So if Ion-san or Veressa come out and are better than Yai official currently for Mizuki, then she can get better in the future. I'm not going to theorycraft on thoughts and prayers. If she gets better later, I'll talk about how she's better later. And with that, I have nothing else to really say. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts on Mizuki, as I'd love to hear it and I respond to almost every single comment. Channel members, I love you and appreciate your support. It means the world to me. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys on the flip side. Peace.